blush that these things can be possible. I was rector near Huddersfield during the 3 years in which the mills were at their worst, but I have never seen such complete helplessness of the poor as since then in Bethnal Green. Not one father of a family in 10 in the whole neighbourhood has other clothing than his working suit, and that is as bad and tattered as possible. Many, indeed, have no other covering for the night than these rags, and no bed, save a sack of straw and shavings. The foregoing description furnishes an idea of the aspect of the interior of the dwellings. But let us follow the English officials, who occasionally stray thither, into one or two of these working men's homes. On the occasion of an inquest held November 14, 1843, by Mr. Carter, coroner for Surrey, upon the body of Anne Galway, aged 45 years, the newspapers related the following particulars concerning the deceased. She had lived at No. 3 White Lion Court, Bermondsey Street, London, with her husband and a 19-year-old son in a little room, in which neither a bedstead nor any other furniture was to be seen. She lay dead beside her son upon a heap of feathers which was scattered over her almost naked body, there being neither sheet nor coverlet. The feathers stuck so fast over the whole body, that the physician could not examine the corpse, until it was cleansed, and then found it starved and scarred from the bites of vermin. Part of the floor of the room was torn up, and the whole used by the family as a privy. On Monday, January 15, 1844, 2 boys were brought before the police magistrate because, being in a starving condition, they had stolen, and immediately devoured a half-cooked calf's foot from a shop. The magistrate felt called upon to investigate the case further, and received the following details from the policeman. The mother of the 2 boys was the widow of an ex-soldier, afterwards policeman, and had had a very hard time, since the death of her husband, to provide for her 9 children. She lived at No. 2 Pools Place, Quaker Court, Spitalfields, in the utmost poverty. When the policeman came to her, he found her with 6 of her children literally huddled together in a little back room, with no furniture, but 2 old rush-bottomed chairs with the seats gone, a small table with 2 legs broken, a broken cup, and a small dish. On the hearth was scarcely a spark of fire, and in one corner lay as many old rags as would fill a woman's apron, which served the whole family as a bed. For bed clothing they had only their scanty day clothing. The poor woman told him that she had been forced to sell her bedstead the year before to buy food. Her bedding she had pawned with a victualler for food. In short, everything had gone for food. The magistrate ordered the woman a considerable provision from the poor box. In February, 1844, Teresa Bishop, a widow 60 years old, was recommended, with her sick daughter, aged 26, to the compassion of the police magistrate in Marlborough Street. She lived at No. 5 Brown Street, Grosvenor Square, in a small back room no larger than a closet, in which there was not one single piece of furniture. In one corner lay some rags upon which both slept. A chest served as table and chair. The mother earned a little by charing. The owner of the house said that they had lived in this way since May, 1843, had gradually sold or pawned everything that they had, and had still never paid any rent. The magistrate assigned them £1 from the poor box. I am far from asserting that all London working people live in such want as the foregoing 3 families. I know very well that 10 are somewhat better off, where one is so totally trodden underfoot by society, but I assert that thousands of industrious and worthy people far worthier and more to be respected than all the rich of London, do find themselves in a condition unworthy of human beings, and that every proletarian, every one, without exception, is exposed to a similar fate without any fault of his own and in spite of every possible effort. But in spite of all this, they who have some kind of a shelter are fortunate in comparison with the utterly homeless. In London 50,000 human beings get up every morning, not knowing where they are to lay their heads at night. The luckiest of this multitude, those who succeed in keeping a penny or 2 until evening, enter a lodging house, such as abound in every great city, where they find a bed. But what a bed! These houses are filled with beds from cellar to garret, 4, 5, 6 beds in a room, as many as can be crowded in. Into every bed 4, 5, or 6 human beings are piled, as many as can be packed in, sick and well, young and old, drunk and sober, men and women, just as they come, indiscriminately. Then come strife, blows, wounds, or, if these bedfellows agree, So much the worse. Thefts are arranged, and things done which our language, grown more humane than our deeds, refuses to record. And those who cannot pay for such a refuge, they sleep where they find a place, in passages, arcades, in corners where the police and the owners leave them undisturbed. A few individuals find their way to the refuges which are managed, here and there, by private charity. Others sleep on the benches in the parks close under the windows of Queen Victoria. Let us hear the London Times. It appears from the report of the proceedings at Marlborough Street Police Court in our columns of yesterday, that there is an average number of 50 human beings of all ages, who huddle together in the parks every night, having no other shelter than what is supplied by the trees and a few hollows of the embankment. Of these, the majority are young girls who have been seduced from the country by the soldiers, and turned loose on the world in all the destitution of friendless penury, and all the recklessness of early vice. This is truly horrible. Poor there must be everywhere. Indigence will find its way and set up its hideous state in the heart of a great and luxurious city. Amid the thousand narrow lanes and by-streets of a populous metropolis there must always, we fear, be much suffering, much that offends the eye, much that lurks unseen. But that within the precincts of wealth, gaiety, and fashion, neither regal grandeur of St. James, close on the palatial splendor of Bayswater, on the confines of the old and new aristocratic quarters, in a district, where the cautious refinement of modern design has refrained from creating one single tenement for poverty, which seems, as it were, dedicated to the exclusive enjoyment of wealth. That their want, and famine, and disease, and vice should stalk and all their kindred horrors, consuming body by body, soul by soul. It is indeed a monstrous state of things. Enjoyment the most absolute, that bodily ease, intellectual excitement, or the more innocent pleasures of sense can supply to man's craving, brought in close contact with the most unmitigated misery. Wealth, from its bright saloons, laughing, an insolently heedless laugh, at the unknown wounds of want. Pleasure, cruelly but unconsciously mocking the pain that moans below. All contrary things mocking one another, all contrary, save the vice which tempts, and the vice which is tempted. But let all men remember this, that within the most courtly precincts of the richest city of God's earth, there may be found, night after night, winter after winter, women, young in years, old in sin and suffering, outcasts from society, rotting from famine, filth, and disease. Let them remember this, and learn not to theorize but to act. God knows, there is much room for action nowadays. 32. I have referred to the refuges for the homeless. How greatly overcrowded these are, two examples may show. A newly erected refuge for the houseless in Upper Ogle Street, that can shelter 300 persons every night, has received since its opening, January 27 to March 17, 1844, 2,740 persons for one or more nights, and, although the season was growing more favorable, the number of applicants in this, as well as in the asylums of Whitecross Street and Wapping, was strongly on the increase, and a crowd of the homeless had to be sent away every night for want of room. In another refuge, the Central Asylum in Playhouse Yard, there were supplied on an average 460 beds nightly. During the first 3 months of the year 1844, 6,681 persons being sheltered, and 96,141 portions of bread were distributed. Yet the committee of directors declared this institution began to meet the pressure of the needy to a limited extent only when the Eastern Asylum also was opened. Let us leave London, and examine the other great cities of the three kingdoms in their order. Let us take Dublin first, a city the approach to which from the sea is as charming as that of London is imposing. The Bay of Dublin is the most beautiful of the whole British Island Kingdom, and is even compared by the Irish with the Bay of Naples. The city too, possesses great attractions, and its aristocratic districts are better and more tastefully laid out than those of any other British city. By way of compensation, however, the poorer districts of Dublin are among the most hideous and repulsive to be seen in the world. True, the Irish character, which, under some circumstances, is comfortable only in the dirt, has some share in this, but as we find thousands of Irish in every great city in England and Scotland, and as every poor population must gradually sink into the same uncleanliness, the wretchedness of Dublin is nothing specific, nothing peculiar to Dublin, but something common to all great towns. The poor quarters of Dublin are extremely extensive, and the filth, the uninhabitableness of the houses and the neglect of the streets surpass all description. Some idea of the manner in which the poor are here crowded together may be formed from the fact that, in 1817, according to the report of the Inspector of Workhouses, 1,318 persons lived in 52 houses with 390 rooms in Barrel Street.